SAG-AFTRA, the actors union, has agreed to allow for 39 independent films to be produced, including 2 films from A24, probably the most prominent independent film studio right now. Now, why did they do this? Because those producers involved with those films, those 39 films, agreed to the final offer that the union made before the strike. But here's the thing that's really interesting, is that not only are the actors allowed to be in the productions, they're allowed to be in the promotions. That actually, to me, is the stronger point here, because the producers, usually these big studio producers, they're not in the game of making movies anymore. They're in the game of marketing. They're in the game of promoting films, of getting you to get to the next one. There's several things that are going to go on here. First is that these actors are probably going to be much more committed to promoting these independent films because they're probably going to be much closer to their hearts and their art. And they will probably enjoy promoting these movies more than they do those movies that rely on a whole bunch of CGI and them, always being behind green screens, like me only being in front of a green screen just part of the time on my life. The larger productions, I think, may be at a disadvantage because you may have smaller productions who are much more savvy about using social media in order to gain an audience and get people more committed to watching their movies. I'll give you an example, a personal example of something that I've done. Now, this is nothing close to whatever productions are going to be coming from those studios for sure, but a little bit of a little self-promotion here. I'm in Chicago and I worked for Facets Multimedia for 14 years. And during that time, I was the organizer for a midnight movie series. It was called Facets Night School. And for 8 weeks, we had 8 weird, strange, unusual films that we had to promote. Now, most of these films, in the grouping that I've done, most people have never heard of. So how do you get people to those theaters? And how do you, in some cases, sell out those theaters? You start getting inventive. For instance, one of the most successful ones that we had was for a Filipino action film called Wonder Women, in which we had a live radio play done before the screening of the film, and we had audience participation that would vote on whether the main character, played by myself, lives or dies at the end of that skit. Of course, virtually everybody voted for me to die, so yeah, them's the breaks. That's show business. We also had a running series that went on for an entire 8 weeks called Sisters of No Mercy, in which we had a running narrative that kind of poked fun at the nunsploitation genre. Those are just a few examples of some things that we had done in an independent theater that allowed us to be able to do something creative to let people in and make the film an event. That's the really important takeaway from this. If those 39 productions are able to use, for instance, local talents in local theaters to have them become events or use social media to make it an event. I mean, Barbenheimer is an event. It's larger than the 2 films themselves. If that's done, then that could cause a new paradigm as to how movies can be produced and distributed in a way that engages the audience and makes it much more fun to actually go to the films, even for a film that you might not know, with stars that that you may not know. The main takeaway that I get from this is that this could potentially be a very exciting period in Hollywood movies. If this goes well, if these independent films can beat the larger films at their game of marketing and promotion, I think you could really see a paradigm shift, and I think you could really see a new golden age of Hollywood. And if it's done at a lower independent level, this could be something that would be the biggest thing to happen to American films probably since the 1970s. I really hope that this really succeeds.